Derek Douglas was a man who turned heads wherever he went. With a chiseled jawline, piercing eyes, and a smile that could melt the coldest heart, he had a way of making everyone feel seen. But beneath the charm and magnetism was a master manipulator, a con artist who thrived on illusion. For years, Derek had sustained a lavish lifestyle by preying on wealthy women, spinning tales of love and loyalty until their bank accounts ran dry and he vanished without a trace. It was on a warm Sunday afternoon that Derek first laid eyes on Margaret Ballaghan. She was seated gracefully on the patio of an upscale cafe, sipping tea and scrolling through her phone. Her silver hair was impeccably styled, and her elegant dress hinted at a refined taste for the finer things. Margaret exuded class and composure, but Derek saw beyond the exterior. He recognized the loneliness in her eyes. He'd seen that look many times before. She was the perfect mark. Margaret Ballaghan, 60, had lived a life marked by privilege and heartbreak. Her late husband, a successful businessman, had left her a vast fortune when he passed away unexpectedly 5 years prior. Despite having everything money could buy, Margaret carried a void wealth couldn't fill. Her days were filled with charity galas, board meetings for her husband's foundation, and elegant gatherings. But when the guests left and the laughter faded, she was painfully alone. Derek approached her with the finesse of a seasoned actor. "Excuse me," he said with a warm, disarming smile. "I couldn't help but notice your book, The Art of Joy. That's one of my favorites." Startled but intrigued, Margaret looked up. "Really? Not many people your age are into philosophy." "I've always been an old soul," Derek replied smoothly, taking the seat across from her as if it were reserved for him. "I'm Derek." "Margaret," she said, extending her hand. His handshake was firm yet gentle. He radiated sincerity, or at least the illusion of it. As he leaned back, locking eyes with her, he said, "You have this presence about you, magnetic. I'd be honored to buy you another cup of tea." Margaret's cheeks flushed. She hadn't been flattered like that in years. "Well, I suppose I can make time for one more cup," she replied with a soft smile. Over the next hour, Derek worked his magic. He listened intently as Margaret spoke of her late husband, her philanthropic work, and her dream of traveling the world. In return, he spun fabrications, tales of a humble upbringing, a passion for giving back, and a deep longing for meaningful connection. By the time they parted, Margaret felt as though she had known him for years. As he walked her to her car, Derek handed her a slip of paper with his number. "I'd love to see you again, Margaret. No pressure. Just two kindred spirits navigating this world." Margaret clutched the paper, her heart fluttering like it hadn't in decades. "Thank you, Derek. I'll think about it." That night, Derek sat in his modest apartment, reviewing notes he had mentally collected about Margaret. Wealthy, lonely, emotionally vulnerable. She was the ideal target, and he was ready to play the long game, but for Margaret, the encounter felt like destiny. They began seeing each other regularly. Walks in the park, candlelit dinners, heartfelt conversations. Derek always knew exactly what to say, what emotion to mirror, what wound to gently press. Margaret opened up like never before. She shared her deepest fears of growing old alone, of feeling forgotten. "You deserve to be happy, Margaret," Derek told her one night as they sat by her fireplace. "And I want to be the man who makes you happy." Tears welled in her eyes. "Oh, Derek, I don't know what I've done to deserve you." He took her hands, gazing into her eyes. "You've given me something I never thought I'd find, purpose. You make me want to be a better man." In that moment, Margaret felt truly loved. What she didn't know was that every moment had been carefully orchestrated, Derek's performance designed to win her heart and access to her fortune. As weeks passed, she introduced him to her inner circle. He charmed them all, earning praise even from her skeptical daughter, Clara. But her best friend, Evelyn, wasn't convinced. "He's too perfect," Evelyn warned one evening. "No one is that charming without a catch." "Oh, Evelyn," Margaret laughed. "Don't be so cynical. Derek is wonderful. Can't you just be happy for me?" Evelyn sighed. "Just be careful, Margaret." Behind the scenes, Derek was already planting seeds, suggesting joint investments, offering to manage her foundation, and floating ideas about opening a business together. Margaret, blinded by love, interpreted each move as devotion. One evening on the veranda, Margaret turned to Derek with a shy smile. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you." "What is it, love?" he asked, curiosity piqued. "I think I might be falling in love with you." Derek felt a wave of satisfaction. "Margaret, you've made me the happiest man alive." They kissed under the fading sunlight. He was almost there. Almost. But love, as it turned out, had plans of its own. Margaret began feeling off. Tired. Nauseated. Odd cravings. At first, she blamed stress or aging. But Evelyn insisted she see a doctor. "You're not invincible, Margaret," she said gently. "You need to get checked." Margaret finally agreed. The diagnosis shocked her and her doctor. "You're pregnant," he said, his voice cautious. "Pregnant?" she echoed in disbelief. "That's impossible. I'm 60. I went through menopause years ago." "It's extremely rare, but it's real," he said. "You're about 8 weeks along." Margaret left the clinic in a daze. But as shock gave way to reflection, a strange joy bloomed in her heart. Could this be a miracle? When she told Derek, he responded with a rehearsed mix of surprise and warmth. "A baby." "That's incredible," he said, masking his panic. Inside, he was spiraling. This was not part of the plan. But he knew he had to adapt. "This must be a sign," he said, embracing her. "Our love is creating miracles." They kept the pregnancy quiet. But soon, friends noticed Margaret's glow. At a luncheon, someone jokingly asked if she was expecting. "Yes," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I'm pregnant." Gasps followed. But instead of ridicule, she received an outpouring of support. "A miracle baby," they called it. The media caught wind of the story. "The Miracle of Margaret Balogun" became a headline. Reporters camped outside her estate. Social media lit up with admiration. Derek leaned into the attention. He gave interviews, shared their love story, and presented himself as the doting father-to-be. But behind the smiles, Derek was uneasy. The spotlight was dangerous. The more attention, the greater the risk of his past being exposed. Then, Evelyn acted. Unable to ignore her instincts, she began digging into Derek's past. What she discovered was damning. Aliases, bank records, women he had conned. She brought the evidence to Margaret. In the quiet of her living room, Margaret pored over documents. Each piece chipped away at the illusion Derek had so carefully built. "How could I have been so blind?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Evelyn sat beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Because you have a kind heart, Maggie. But now it's time to protect it, and your child." And just like that, the life Margaret thought she had built with Derek began to unravel. But from the ruins, a new strength would rise. "You used me," Margaret said, her voice trembling. Derek only shrugged, his indifference cutting deeper than any insult. "You're not the first, Margaret, and you won't be the last." The argument spiraled. Margaret demanded answers while Derek dodged every bit of blame. At one point, he tried his signature charm to smooth things over, but Margaret had reached her limit. "You can pack your things and leave," she said firmly, pointing toward the door. "I don't want to see you in this house again." Derek let out a bitter laugh. "You think you can just kick me out after everything I've done for you?" Margaret's eyes flashed with fury. "Everything you've done for me? All you've done is lie and take advantage of me. Get out!" Realizing he had lost control of the narrative, Derek grabbed his belongings and stormed out, the door slamming behind him like a final exclamation mark. Margaret collapsed onto the couch, her body racked with sobs. Evelyn rushed to her side, pulling her into a warm, steady embrace. "You did the right thing," Evelyn whispered. "I know it hurts now, but you're stronger than this. You'll get through it." In the days that followed, Margaret poured her energy into reclaiming her life. She contacted a lawyer, initiated the process of severing ties with Derek, and, guided by Evelyn, decided to report everything to the authorities. Evelyn handed over the evidence she had carefully gathered. The media caught wind of the scandal, and soon Margaret's name filled headlines. 60-year-old widow conned by charming scam artist. Journalists camped outside her home, but Margaret refused to speak. She was determined to regain her dignity on her own terms. One afternoon, as she organized the nursery, a sense of peace washed over her. The soft-colored room, once a painful reminder of betrayal, now stood for something else. Hope. She placed a hand on her growing belly and whispered, "We're going to be okay." The road ahead wouldn't be easy, But with Evelyn's unwavering support and her lawyer by her side, Margaret felt ready. As the sun set that evening, she stared out the window and found a renewed sense of purpose. Her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The morning after Derek's departure, Margaret woke to a silence that felt strangely comforting. The house, once filled with tension, now breathed easier. She spent the day clearing away his remnants, his cologne, his clothes, his memories. Each item discarded was a step toward healing. Evelyn arrived that afternoon with a determined look. "Maggie, we need to act fast," she said, dropping a stack of papers on the kitchen table. "The longer we wait, the more likely he'll vanish." "What do we do?" Margaret asked. Evelyn laid out the plan. They would file a report with the police and provide every shred of evidence they had. Margaret would explore legal options. "We need to make sure he never does this to another woman again," Evelyn said firmly. Within days, the scandal exploded. The media dubbed Margaret the miracle mom, a 60-year-old widow expecting a child, but darker headlines quickly followed. "Widow duped by charming fraudster. The man who preys on lonely women." Margaret remained silent, but Evelyn pushed her to take control of the story. "If you don't speak up, they'll twist it," she warned. Reluctantly, Margaret agreed to one exclusive interview with a reputable journalist. Sitting in her living room, she bared her soul, speaking about the joy of finding love again, the heartbreak of betrayal, and her resolve to move forward. "I want other women to learn from my mistakes," she said. "Trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it." The interview aired that evening and struck a national nerve. Messages of support flooded in, along with painful confessions from other women who had been deceived. Margaret realized she wasn't alone, and that gave her strength. Meanwhile, Derek's world began to collapse. The media exposed his past. More victims came forward. His face plastered every news outlet. Authorities launched an investigation and issued warrants for his arrest, but Derek wasn't ready to surrender. He called Margaret, leaving a voicemail. "Maggie, I made mistakes, but I love you. We can fix this. Don't let them tear us apart." Margaret listened, then calmly deleted the message. She was done with lies. Weeks later, the trial began. Margaret sat in the front row, flanked by Evelyn and her lawyer. Derek entered looking disheveled. A far cry from the suave man she had once loved, the prosecutor laid out the charges: fraud, theft, emotional abuse. As Margaret took the stand, she spoke with quiet courage. "He saw me as an easy target," she said, voice steady. "But I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor." The courtroom fell silent. Even Derek looked shaken. Whether by guilt or self-pity, Margaret couldn't tell. The trial stretched over several days. Witnesses testified. Evidence was detailed meticulously. And when the verdict was finally read, guilty on all counts, Margaret felt the weight of justice settle over her like a bomb. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for a statement. Margaret stepped forward with her head held high. "This has been one of the hardest experiences of my life," she said. "But it's shown me how strong I truly am. To anyone going through something similar, you are not alone." With the case behind her, Margaret turned to the future. She founded True Voices, a foundation supporting women affected by emotional and financial abuse. It offered legal aid, counseling, and workshops to help women recognize the signs of manipulation. She poured her heart into it, determined to turn her pain into purpose. One sunny afternoon, Margaret stood before a packed auditorium. "Life threw me into a storm I never saw coming," she said. "But even in the darkest moments, we can find our light. We are stronger than we think." The crowd rose in applause. Many moved to tears. Margaret felt deeply aligned with her mission. At home, the nursery was finally finished. The walls were lavender, dotted with stars and soft clouds. Evelyn had insisted on throwing a baby shower, and the event overflowed with love, laughter, and support. As her due date neared, Margaret began journaling every evening, capturing her dreams, fears, and hopes. "I want you to know you were born from love," she wrote one night. "Not the kind I thought I had with Derek, but the love I found in myself, the love from the people who stood by me, and the love I already have for you." When the day arrived, Evelyn stayed by her side. Hours later, Margaret welcomed her baby boy into the world. "Welcome to the world, Gabriel," she whispered, naming him after the angel of strength and protection. Gabriel had a full head of dark hair and a scrunched little face that looked wise beyond its years. As Margaret held him, tears streamed down her cheeks. Every struggle, every tear, had led to this day, and the weeks that followed, Gabriel brought joy and purpose to every day. His first smile, the way his hand gripped her finger, the tiny coos that filled the once silent house, every moment was a reminder of how far she'd come. "You're doing amazing," Evelyn said one night, watching Gabriel sleep. "He's lucky to have you." Margaret smiled, her heart full. "I'm the lucky one. He gave me a second chance at life." As the years passed, Margaret's life flourished. True Voices became a national movement, and she published a memoir that inspired thousands. Gabriel grew into a kind, curious boy who adored his mother and often sat proudly in the front row at her events. She made sure he knew how he came into the world, not as a scandal, but as a testament to love, resilience, and rebirth. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Gabriel looked up at her. "Mom, are you happy?" Margaret smiled, her eyes glistening. "I am, sweetheart, more than I ever thought I could be." And she meant it. Margaret had found her peace, her purpose, and her strength. Her journey had been forged in fire, but it had led her to love. And with Gabriel by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. Her story wasn't just one of survival. It was one of transformation, of hope, and of the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. The best, she knew, was yet to come.